Shakespeare and his characters regularly wonder what it's like to be dead. The plays offer us all kinds of metaphors for death. It's asleep, for instance. Prospero in The Tempest says, "Our little lives are rounded with a sleep." Or it's an erotic encounter. Juliet's father says that on the eve of her wedding day, death was the bridegroom that lay with her. All of Shakespeare's plays explore or encounter death in some form, even in the comedies. The stakes are actually emotionally very high in Shakespeare's comedies, where you've got characters who wander through a play wishing that someone who is dead wasn't. And then in Act 5, their wish comes true. We see that as early as the Comedy of Errors. We see it in Twelfth Night. We get it again in a modified form in all of the late romances. The Elizabethans were much more familiar with death than we are. There was a coexistence of life and death. People died in the houses in which they were born, probably in the very room in which they were born. The herbs that were used in wedding bouquets were the same herbs that were used at funerals to throw on hearses, to throw in the grave. So in Romeo and Juliet, for example, when Juliet's supposedly dead body is discovered, we get a wonderful stage direction in the first quarto that says, "They all but the nurse go forth, strewing rosemary on her body." And the reason they've got rosemary to hand is because they were preparing for a wedding the very next day. We've also got public executions as a form of theatre, not as an atrocity, but as a spectacle with a very carnivalesque atmosphere. It's clear that Shakespeare had seen dead bodies, and not just seen them, had observed their effects in death. Doctors often comment, in fact, on the accuracy of the descriptions of poisoning or strangulation in Shakespeare's plays. Shakespeare's characters are also very worried about their reputations after death. In fact, what happens to you after death for Shakespeare's characters turns out to be less important than the manner in which you meet your death. In Macbeth, we're told of the Thane of Cawdor that nothing in his life became him like the leaving of it. And that's where we get these great lines, like Hamlet, "The readiness is all." In King Lear, "The ripeness is all," the ability to meet your death. Or perhaps we get it in my favourite line, Hotspur's encouragement to his men as they go into battle in Henry IV Part 1, when he says, "Die merrily."